Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to the GSL-English Podcast. My name is Gideon, and this is a podcast for all learners of English to practice and improve in a relaxed and natural way. And in this episode, I want to talk about something that I heard on another podcast. And this is the quote. Okay. They were talking about daydreaming, and they said, you know, that thing that humans used to do. That thing that humans used to do. And it really got me thinking about it. Do I daydream as much as I used to? And I'm not talking about when you're a child and your mind just always kind of wanders into these fantasy scenarios and fantasy worlds. I'm talking as an adult. Do I daydream as much as I used to? And I think the answer is a very clear no. So in this episode today, we're going to talk about daydreaming. We're first going to look at exactly what is it. So what are we referring to when we talk about daydreaming? And we're also going to look at why we should all do it more. And why are we not daydreaming perhaps as much as we used to? Because it's really interesting when you look into daydreaming. It's not just a case of your mind wandering when it should be focused. It's actually a good thing, and it's actually quite an important thing. So that's the topic for today's podcast. Now, if you are a returning viewer, subscriber, listener on whatever platform you prefer, let's just quickly talk about the elephant in the room, which is that I haven't posted a podcast, I think, for about 4 weeks. And firstly, let me just say I am so sorry. I always try to keep this podcast consistent and up to date, but life has just got the better of me recently. And we're not going to talk about this for too long. So if you don't care and you just want to get into the topic, feel free to skip forward. But just a little bit of an update. The reason that there hasn't been a podcast for a while is firstly because I actually pre-recorded 2 or 3 episodes a fair few weeks back because I knew that I was going to be busy. And unfortunately, when I went to edit those episodes, I realized that all of the audio was corrupted. I tried so hard to fix it, to get it back, just to try and make it work, but I couldn't. So I lost those episodes. And then I don't know what was going on, but my Mac and the setup that they usually use just kept on freezing. Every time I was recording, it would record for about 5 minutes, then the video would jerk, and then it would get out of sync with the audio. So I'm really hoping this one works. If you're watching this, then it's worked. Hurrah. If you're not watching it, then you have no idea, and it's just another week without the podcast. So if that's happened, I sincerely apologize. But then you won't know about the apology because you can't watch this. It's an unfortunate paradox that we find ourselves in. But let's get into it. If you are new here, give it a subscribe. Please give the channel a subscribe. I post podcasts like this usually every week just to help you, just kind of surround yourself in British English so that you can be best prepared to use the language in a natural and authentic way. So that's the idea. So let's get into the topic. We're first going to establish what is daydreaming. Now, as usual, if you want to read along with me on the screen, you're more than welcome. If you just want to listen and just take it in, please do. But if you want to practice your fluency, I do encourage you just to read along out loud at the same time with me. Great little exercise to do. So we're going to take it paragraph by paragraph and then just break it down and enjoy it. So here we go. Daydreaming is a natural mental state in which your attention shifts away from the world around you and towards your own thoughts, memories, emotions, or imagination. Although you are awake, your mind begins to wander, often without you consciously deciding to do so. So here we just get an initial insight into what daydreaming is. It's a natural mental state, so it's something that we all do. But the idea is that our attention shifts or moves away from what we're experiencing around us and it's more internal to what we think, to our memories, and so on. So although, of course, while we are daydreaming, we are awake, it's this idea that our mind begins to wander. And I think that is such a lovely definition of daydreaming, our mind wandering. It makes me think, have you ever been to a new city or a new place and you don't have a particular destination, but you just wander? You just go for a walk and see where you end up. That is kind of the idea with daydreaming, that without you consciously doing so, your mind's going for a walk to a destination that you just don't know. And that's what makes it truly beautiful. So what happens during a daydream? Well, during a daydream, you might replay a past experience, imagine a future event, solve a problem, or simply let one thought lead to another. Rather than being a sign that the brain has switched off, daydreaming is a different kind of thinking, one that focuses on your inner world instead of your surroundings. So what do we do during a daydream? Well, we might replay a past experience, just something that's happened in life, recent or far back in the past. Imagine a future event, something that we're going to experience. Solve a problem. But I like this next point. Or simply let one thought lead to another. And that really is where daydreaming is. Again, it comes to the idea that there's no specific destination. You're just letting your brain just jump, leapfrog from thought to thought to thought to thought. And it's not a sign, as it says, that our brain has switched off. So if you're daydreaming, it doesn't mean that you're mentally challenged or that your brain is just switching off and not working. It's just a different kind of thinking. One that really focuses on our own personal inner world instead of everything that's going on around us. And this next point's interesting. Research suggests that daydreaming plays an important role in creativity, memory, emotional processing, and planning for the future. It gives the brain an opportunity to make connections between ideas, reflect on experiences, and imagine possibilities. So here at this point in the article, we start to lean into the importance of daydreaming. So research suggests that daydreaming plays an important role, or is a key aspect of creativity, memory, emotional processing. Often when you're daydreaming, you're processing the emotions of life, good or bad. You might even plan for the future. But it gives the brain an opportunity to make connections between itself. And when you think about it, we've got so much going on in life, haven't we? We're always, just taking in, we're experiencing life, we're going through things. So when we daydream, it's like our brain is a phone operator, just connecting all of the thoughts and all of the experiences. And also it helps us to imagine possibilities. So it goes on to say, while excessive daydreaming can sometimes become unhelpful, occasional mind wandering is a normal and healthy part of human cognition. Far from being a waste of time, it allows us to think beyond the present moment and can contribute to creativity, self-understanding, and problem solving. So excessive daydreaming. So if we do something excessively, we do it a lot, perhaps too much, this can become unhelpful. There are times in life, a lot of the time, where we've got to focus, haven't we? But occasionally daydreaming, it is a normal and healthy part of human cognition, the brain working. And a lot of people think of daydreaming or mind wandering always as a complete waste of time, a lack of focus, particularly in the world that we live in. If you're not grinding, if you're not hustling, if you're not working, then you're wasting your time. But here, it's saying, well, actually, it presents opportunities that can think past the present moment, can contribute to our creativity, our self-understanding, understanding what's going on in our lives, and also problem solving. We've all got things going on in our life, and let's be honest, we've all got some problems that need solving. So actually, daydreaming helps us just look past that present moment we're in and focus just on some different aspects that need processing in our lives. So the big question is, and it's the one that really got me preparing this podcast, is are we daydreaming less? Is it really that thing that humans used to do? Well, simply put, yes. Many researchers argue that opportunities for daydreaming have become less common. Even though the human ability to daydream has not disappeared, the key distinction is that people are not necessarily daydreaming less because their brains have changed. They may be daydreaming less because modern life leaves fewer moments for it. Really interesting here. Opportunities for daydreaming are becoming less common. Of course, the human ability to daydream, it's not disappeared. It's not gone anywhere. But we're not daydreaming less because our brains have changed. We're just modern life doesn't leave that many moments for us just to sit down and daydream, to let the mind wander. So there's several factors that contribute to this. The first is constant access to technology. Perhaps the biggest change is the smartphone. Throughout history, there were countless moments when people had nothing to do. Waiting for a bus, sitting on a train, standing in a queue, or walking to work. These empty moments often allowed the mind to wander naturally. Today, many of those moments are filled with scrolling through social media, reading the news, checking emails, or watching short videos. Instead of turning inward, our attention is constantly directed outward. And let's be honest, this is the biggest answer, isn't it? If someone said to you, do we daydream less? Do our minds wander less? And they asked why? We'd say, well, of course it's technology. Technology isn't all bad. But all of our moments in life are filled with technology, aren't they? You know, it starts off by saying there used to be a time, I remember it in the 90s, the early 2000s, up until around 2010, I would say, that when you had nothing to do, you actually did nothing, and that was okay. You waited for a bus, you sit on a train, you go to the park, go for a walk. You just did nothing. Those empty moments, not in a negative way, those empty moments, meaning that we're not filling them with something, they allowed our mind to wander naturally. You know, even today, I'm probably guilty of it myself, but you go for a walk and got this inclination, even when we're going for a walk outside, to look on our phone, to watch something. Many of our empty moments are filled with social media, reading the news, checking emails, watching videos. And instead of just taking a moment for our turning inward, letting our minds wander, we are constantly directed outward to technology. The second factor is constant stimulation. Modern life provides an almost endless stream of information and entertainment. Music, podcasts, videos, notification, and games mean that our brains are rarely left without something to focus on. While these activities can be enjoyable and useful, they reduce the amount of unstructured mental downtime that often leads to daydreaming. Excuse me, God, I've got a real frog in my throat before I started recording this. I normally try and down some water before I record, but didn't do that today. Sorry about that. It's true, isn't it? Modern life provides constant stimulation, which I like the way it says, you know, that this isn't always a bad thing. These activities can be useful, they're enjoyable, and we're not saying there's anything wrong with that. But our brains are rarely left without something to focus on. They reduce the amount of unstructured mental downtime. Completely honest question here. When was the last time you just sat down and did nothing? Sat on the sofa, didn't stimulate the brain, didn't focus on something. I don't know. I think it's I can't remember. I don't know. I can. No, you know what? I'm just going to say no. I don't do it anywhere near as much as I used to. But it's those empty moments that lead to daydreaming. A culture of productivity. Many societies place a high value on being busy. Sitting quietly and doing nothing is sometimes seen as lazy or unproductive. As a result, people often feel pressure to use every spare minute efficiently, even though periods of rest and reflection can be valuable for creativity and mental well-being. I think this is a really true point, and it's quite a sad one, that many societies put this high value on being busy. If you're sitting quietly, if you're doing nothing, oh no, I'm being lazy. I'm not being productive enough. I'm comparing myself to others, and they're making the most of their time. So there's this pressure or this constant push kind of on your back. You got to fill every spare minute efficiently. Life doesn't wait for you. You shouldn't be daydreaming. But we know that rest and reflection, we've seen that they're actually important. We need that time to process. We need that time for our brain just to work out what's going on. And I thought this fourth point was really interesting. Less tolerance for boredom. People have become less accustomed to boredom because it is so easy to avoid. In the past, boredom was an unavoidable part of everyday life. Today, it can often be eliminated within seconds by reaching for a phone. However, boredom is thought to be one of the conditions that encourages the mind to wander and generate new ideas. I think this is a really interesting point. When we're bored, we don't want to do anything. Or we do want to do something, but we don't know what to do. And because of that, it kind of leads us to not doing anything. But we've become less accustomed, meaning that we're not used to it, because it's so easy to avoid. As a kid, boredom for me was an unavoidable part of life every day. I remember kind of sitting on the sofa with my feet on the top, my head kind of hanging off, just thinking, what am I going to do? But you know what that boredom would lead to? Just me sitting there thinking, daydreaming, wandering. But today, what do we do if we're bored? Phone, games. That noise is me switching something on, by the way. So easy just to feel, isn't it? We go on the laptop, we check emails. Boredom isn't always bad, and it's one of the conditions that leads us to think, to wander, to generate new ideas. So has daydreaming actually declined? Now this is where it's important to be careful. There is no definitive or definite evidence that humans as a species daydream significantly less than previous generations, simply because it is very difficult to measure something so personal and internal. What researchers do suggest is that modern technology and lifestyle have reduced the opportunities for spontaneous mind wandering and increased the amount of time our attention is occupied by external stimuli. In other words, humans also certainly still daydream. What may have changed is how often we allow our minds the uninterrupted time in which daydreaming naturally occurs. So of course, there's no evidence suggesting that we're daydreaming less because this is very personal, isn't it? It's internal. But we can't deny the fact that modern technology and current lifestyles have reduced or lowered the opportunities for spontaneous mind wandering. If we do something spontaneously, it's not planned, it just happens. Sometimes the best moments we have with friends are spontaneous. Our attention is always occupied by external stimuli. We almost certainly still daydream, but what's changed is how often we allow our minds the uninterrupted time which it happens. And that's where the issue is. So why and how can we daydream more? Daydreaming is often thought of as a distraction, but research suggests that it can play an important role in how we think, learn, and understand ourselves, the key is balance. Constantly daydreaming can interfere with daily life, but giving your mind regular opportunities to wander can have several benefits. So it's kind of really, it's just talking about balance, isn't it? Daydreaming is often thought of as a distraction, but it's such an important role in how we think, how we learn, how we understand ourselves. But again, as always, the key is balance. And that's true to really everything in life, isn't it? It's all about balance. Constantly daydreaming, constantly allowing our brain to wander, well, that can interfere or get in the way with our daily life. But it's this idea of maybe creating regular opportunities for our mind to wander. But why should we do that? Why should we try and daydream a little bit more? Let's look at some reasons. The first is that it encourages creativity. When you are not concentrating on a demanding task, your brain is free to make unexpected connections between ideas. This is why people often have new ideas while showering, walking, or doing household chores. Allowing your mind to wander can lead to creative insights that don't emerge during focused work. Have you ever experienced this? I don't know, you're doing a mundane task, you're having a shower, you're doing the cooking, you're going for a walk, you're commuting to work. And that is when your brain kind of fits all the jigsaw pieces of your life into the puzzle for that day. When we're not concentrating on a really demanding task, our brain is free and it can just make unexpected connections between certain ideas. And a demanding task could be scrolling on our phone because we are demanding our brains a constant, quick attention. But we often come up with new ideas when we're doing these mundane, everyday tasks. So allowing our mind to wander can lead to creative insights. So what a beautiful benefit of... Oh, sorry, I just realised I've been sorry, a little pause there in the video. I just realised I might have been knocking the camera a little bit. It's amazing how being out of practice for 4 weeks, and I'm just learning it all again. So here we go. I apologise if the camera's wobbled and I just knocked my microphone. Oh dear. If you are new here, you'll realise this is not a professional podcast by any means. But we keep on going. We do not give up. What was I talking about? Creative insights. Beautiful part of daydreaming, to promote creativity. Do you feel that you're perhaps less creative than you used to be? Maybe making time for daydreaming. It helps process emotions. Daydreaming gives you time to reflect on experiences and emotions. By replaying events or imagining different outcomes, you can better understand your feelings and make sense of what has happened in your life. This kind of reflection can improve emotional awareness and resilience. Gives you the time just to reflect, to think on, to meditate on different experiences and emotions. When you daydream, something you might let your mind wander about is things that you've experienced. You might replay those events. You might imagine different outcomes. And when we do that, this is when the understanding ourselves comes in. We can just make sense of how we feel, why we feel, and we can make sense of just what's happened in life. And this reflection, this thinking can improve emotional awareness. So just being aware of who we are emotionally and why we feel the way we do. But also resilience, strength of character. So daydreaming isn't just something that, we do to enter a fantasy land. No, it's important for us to process the emotions we experience in life. It improves planning and problem solving. People often use daydreaming to imagine future situations. You might mentally rehearse a conversation, think through a difficult decision, or picture yourself achieving a goal. This mental stimulation helps you prepare for real-life challenges and can improve decision-making. Imagine future situations. I don't think I do this as much when I'm daydreaming, but I know many do. You might think through a difficult decision or prepare yourself for something important that's coming up in life. And this mental simulation helps you prepare for real life challenges. So you're kind of just running through a simulation of that event. And it just helps you to be ready for the different outcomes of that event. And it goes on to say another good thing about daydreaming is it strengthens memory. Periods of quiet reflection allow the brain to organize and consolidate memories. Rather than simply storing information, the brain reviews experiences and connects them with existing knowledge, making learning more meaningful. I think this is such a lovely point. Again, particularly in the day of technology, we don't have to remember as much. So you know, our memory is affected by this. These periods of just quiet reflection, they allow the brain just to organize and kind of consolidate, put together memories. So rather than just simply storing or logging information, our brain connects all of the dots, so to speak, all of the experiences together. Isn't that just a lovely thought about daydreaming? And lastly, it offers a break from constant stimulation. Modern life exposes us to a continuous flow of information. Daydreaming provides a chance to step away from external demands and reconnect with your own thoughts. This mental downtime can leave people feeling calmer and more mentally refreshed. Life is crazy. We are constantly stimulated by everything that it throws at us. But when we daydream, it's just a chance to step away from those external demands and just reconnect with our own thoughts. Kind of sometimes technology, I think particularly just what we're able to do in our smartphones, it kind of can creates this space between us living and our personal thoughts. But that taking time, that mental downtime, just to daydream kind of brings us back in connection, with our own thoughts and what we're feeling. And because of that, we feel mentally refreshed. So how can we daydream more? It isn't something you can do by force, but you can create the conditions in which it naturally happens. How do we do that? Well, leave moments unfilled. Resist the urge to check your phone every time you have a spare minute. This is something I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but I'm really working on this. Leave some moments unfilled. Leave them empty. If you're waiting at the bus stop, if you're on your sofa, don't go on your phone. Just do nothing. Go for a walk without headphones. Gentle, repetitive activities often encourage the mind to wander. Go for a walk, nothing with you, no technology. Look out the window. Whether you're on a train or sitting at home, simply observing the world without a specific goal can allow thoughts to flow naturally. Spend time in nature. Parks, forests, and beaches provide a calm environment with fewer distractions. We can do this wherever we are. Even cities can be beautiful places to walk around. Spend time outside. Embrace boredom. Instead of immediately seeking entertainment, allow yourself to experience a few minutes of doing nothing. Boredom often acts as the starting point for imagination. How quickly do we seek to fill gaps? Embrace boredom. I think this is something that really takes quite a bit of training, but maybe it's something we can do just to get that mind wandering without a focus. Reduce constant multitasking. If we're multitasking, we're trying to do multiple things at once. Giving your brain occasional breaks from notifications and information overload creates more opportunities for spontaneous, without planning, reflection. Daydreaming doesn't require special techniques or long periods of time. Often it begins in the small, ordinary moments of everyday life. The walk to the shops, the wait for the kettle to boil, or the quiet minutes before falling asleep. By protecting some of these moments from constant distraction, you give your mind the space to think, imagine, and create. I just really think it's important. I know for myself personally, this is something I'm going to work on doing. And you realise that daydreaming isn't just a little thing that our minds do. It's an important part of life. But modern technology, the modern life, I should say, does not allow us to do it as much. And I know life is busier than it ever has been, I guess. But maybe, I don't know, some things that I know I'm going to work on is just embracing a little bit of boredom every now and then, not filling every gap, but also not feeling guilty if we are taking some time to do nothing, to have an empty space in the day. Who says that's a bad thing? It is all about balance. But perhaps we all just, would be a little bit better if we just daydreamed a little bit more, letting our brain just process, understand, letting our brain create and problem solve. Just a really important part of life. So there you go. That's today's topic. I hope you did watch it. And if you did get to this part of the podcast, I would like you to write daydream in the comments. Once again, I apologise that there's not been that many episodes recently. I truly hope this has worked. If we've got to this point of the recording, if you're watching it, then it's worked and I'm over the moon and we should be back to regular podcasts. But yeah, sometimes things in life don't go to plan, do they? It's just frustrating. This isn't a big deal. It's only a podcast. There's a lot bigger things going on in the world, but it's frustrating. Sometimes you just got to roll with it, haven't you? You just got to roll, you got to adapt. But the most important thing is not to give up. Because then what's the point in anything if we're going to give up? So yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I do appreciate your support. Please introduce yourself in the comments. Share your thoughts in the comments. Give this episode a like. And don't forget to subscribe and follow. And I'll see you all soon. Have a good one, guys.